BonBon-Land is a super funky amusement park located near the city of Copenhagen in Denmark. The park opened in 1992 and is home to 4 roller coasters and several other amusement attractions. I had the chance to visit the park this past summer as the final stop on our 7-week-long trip to Europe. Therefore, this will be the final countdown video from any of the European amusement parks until I partake in my review series. So let's waste no time and dive right in, starting at the number 8 spot since I didn't have nearly enough rides in to compile a top 10. Let's begin with the legendary Hundepruten. This of course translates to dog fart in English. This ride has one of the most peculiar themes out there, and it's for that reason that I absolutely understand any of you who want to put this at the top spot. But jokes aside, it's a pretty mellow layout that is meant for the little ones. The Zero Force coaster is a common coaster model, but it's understandable as to why. These are mildly thrilling, smooth rides that don't take up a whole lot of space at all. It's when you theme it to a dog farting when it gets that uniqueness factor, and that's why I wrote this first thing when I got to the park. Number 7 is Triane. This is a pair of side-by-side family drop towers that do something absolutely demented when you get to the top. Without any warning whatsoever, you are flung forward into your minimalistic restraint, and it is horrifying. It's funny because all the drops on this ride are actually very mild, but this trick that it does at the top really makes the experience. I first discovered this ride model when I saw it at Tripsdrill, which is an amusement park in southern Germany, and unfortunately due to time constraints, I didn't have time to ride it at that park. So I was very pleased that I found another one of these at BonBon-Land and definitely made it a priority. At number 6 is Victor Van Dorm. Zero Tivoli coasters are some of the most common types of roller coasters in the world. It's essentially a family coaster with a long, sprawling layout with the ability to support incredibly long trains in the name of capacity. BonBon-Land's Tivoli coaster is no exception, however there are 2 reasons I enjoyed this one more than a lot of the others I've ridden. The most obvious is the fact that this one has a fully custom layout. Most of the time these have cloned layouts, but some of the larger ones like Jaguar at Knott's Berry Farm and Nickelodeon Streak at the Mall of America have custom layouts. The second thing is this particular installation is a relocated attraction from a terrain park called Panorama Park in Germany. At its former home, it was very much a terrain coaster, which is why in its current state you have to climb a bunch of stairs to get to the station, and also most of the layout is pretty high off the ground. The one exception is this high-speed turn here, which is by far my favorite part of the ride. A lot of these Tivolis can feel really sluggish at points, so I really appreciated the sense of speed here. Coming up next, at number 5 is Cobra Tower. This is the one ride on this list I did not get to experience. It had tested, but it never opened while I was at the park. Cobra Tower is the tallest freefall attraction in the park, and from what I've heard, it's very reminiscent to a Larsen drop tower. Having experienced many of those, I made an educated guess on where the ride would place and settled with 5. I also asked a friend of mine, Nick from Northern Rides, but he's a sucker for drop tower, so it likely would have been number 1 for him. But he did tell me that of all the drop towers he's ridden, including many from Intamin, this was still the punchiest, and I can believe it. This ranking reflects where I would rank it, but take that with a grain of salt since spots 5 to 1 are all super close together anyways. Number 4 is Svens Fingarm. By far the best flat ride I rode at this park, Svens Fingarm is a huge Zamperla pendulum ride. It also doubles as the park's most thrilling attraction in my opinion, which caught me by surprise because most of the rides here are meant for families. But not this one, man is this thing intense. It is an older model, so it takes a while to get to your max swings, but once you get there, you are blasted with positive Gs on the downswings, and you get some great floater airtime at your apex. I definitely still prefer the modern Zamperla Giant Discoveries, so if this were upgraded to one of those, I'd probably rank it at the number 1 spot. Not that the older model is all too different, but I already said that the top 5 were ranked very close together, so I stand by that. Number 3 is Beaver Rafting. The park's best water ride is one that I didn't even know existed before visiting. But I'll tell you, this is not something worth missing out on. This beaver-themed river raft ride was one of my favorite raft rides anywhere in Europe. Part of that has to do with the theming, but also part of it has to do with this super cool wave pool effect midway through the ride. I've heard these are relatively common in Europe, but this was the only one I personally experienced, and it was awesome. If there is a downside to the ride, it doesn't really have any drops and focuses more on the rapids. If it did have a sizable drop at any point in the layout, I probably would have ranked it at the number 1 spot because the combination of a drop and the wave pool thing would have been way too cool to pass up. Up next at number 2 and many people's favorite attraction at BonBon-Land is Videzfeeda. The park's most intense roller coaster doubles as the world's original Gerstlauer Eurofighter. This coaster opened in 2003 and really paved the way for Gerstlauer's later attractions. Since it is the first, it's naturally going to have a basic layout, but I don't think that causes for any hate. I had a lot of fun on Videzfeeda, and I certainly didn't get off thinking it was a bad ride. I do sometimes hear people say it's rough, but I would beg to differ. I've ridden many modern Gerstlauers that shuffle me around more than this thing did. Now, I mentioned that the layout was pretty basic and short, but it does pack in some fun elements. My favorite is the initial drop, which was the steepest in the world when it first opened. With a max angle of 97 degrees, this beyond vertical descent gives some excellent airtime. Then after that, you have a super fun swooping turn to the right into the only inversion in the entire park, which of course is your classic vertical loop. Everything from that point onwards isn't great aside from this one airtime pop in at the brake run, and that's most likely why I decided to put this at number 2 instead of 1. Because I think most would consider this to be BonBon-Land's best ride, or at least their best roller coaster. However, I went a slightly different route and gave the number 1 spot to Handcotton. This Gerstlauer spinning coaster is a virtually perfect family coaster in my opinion. A lot of you who've ridden Gerstlauer spinners might be familiar with the Pandemonium clones at the Six Flags parks, but this layout is actually quite different. The only other ride that mimics the layout of Handcotton is Joker at Six Flags Mexico, which I actually rode before this one in 2021. I was really impressed by Joker because it ran with no trim brakes and it was well themed. Handcotton lacks in the theming department, but here's where it makes up for that is the spinning. I saw a number of cycles on this thing where it was an absolute riot, but even if it's not spinning excessively, the layout is really well done, particularly towards the end when you get a few pops of airtime. I recognize that putting this at the number 1 spot might be a pretty unpopular take, but it seems like everyone has a different favorite ride at this park. I truly think BonBon-Land is in desperate need of a standout attraction. It doesn't even need to be anything super thrilling, I just think something like a Gravity Group Family Woody would be sensational at this park. Or if they did want to up the intensity, you could give them something like an Intamin Hot Racer. I'm sure they could find some options to best fit the place, but I'm not sure if this will happen since the park hasn't received a new coaster since 2009. And I hate saying this, but I almost see this park closing permanently before they add something new because I can't see how it's all too popular these days. But whatever the case, I'll save all those thoughts for an eventual park review. I hope you all enjoyed my BonBon-Land ranking video, and will leave a like and subscribe to Coaster Dash for more videos like this in the future. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.